The Lighthouse is directed by Robert Eggers, and it stars Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. The Lighthouse is the tale of two lighthouse keepers, or wikis as they are known, tending to their duties on a remote island on the northeastern coast of the United States as they descend more and more into a Lovecraftian, alcohol-infused nightmare. This is Robert Eggers' follow-up to The Witch, and it could very much be perceived as a sort of male response to his first movie. Very much like The Witch, it is a film that is drenched in supernatural dread, sexual repression, isolation, and fear of nature. But this time it's dressed up in sailor legends and wives' tales, as well as quite a bit of Greek mythology, particularly around the myths of the shape-shifting sea god Proteus, and of course the story of Prometheus. At its heart, The Lighthouse showcases two tremendous performances from Pattinson and Dafoe, who play wonderfully off each other, delivering some wonderfully colorful, seafaring dialogue, all the while being shot in gorgeous 35mm black and white film by D.P. Jaron Blaschke, and shot in an almost square 1.19:1 aspect ratio that is sometimes referred to as movie tone. Now, the 1.19:1 is a very particular aspect ratio to choose. Firstly, it obviously frames the characters with very limited negative space, and it appears as though they are boxed into the island, contributing to the sense of claustrophobia and the sense that they are completely trapped in their destiny. But it also helps to evoke a certain period of filmmaking, namely the time when that movie tone aspect ratio was popular, which is generally around the late 20s, early 30s. Very famous films like Murnau's Sunrise or Fritz Lang's M were shot in that 1.19:1 ratio. Now, on top of the legends and myths that Eggers draws on top of the literary references to Melville, Stevenson, and Lovecraft, which he's talked about in interviews, on top of evoking Bergman, which I feel runs throughout the film and throughout Eggers' precedent film, The Witch. And actually, if you haven't listened to it, I would encourage you to seek the A24 Podcast, the episode specifically where Eggers and Ari Aster are talking about Bergman. And there's even a specific point where Eggers references the fact that Bergman can make films that are, on the one hand, really serious about life and death, and on the other hand, make fart jokes. Which certainly would indicate or explain a lot of the scatological humor that you'll find throughout The Lighthouse. But because we were talking about the 1.19:1 aspect ratio evoking films from the late 20s, early 30s, I want to talk about two French films from 1929, which I feel that if you haven't seen them, they will certainly be interesting companion pieces to go and seek out. So the first one is called Finisterae by Jean Epstein, and it is a short film that you can see on Vimeo, and it depicts fishermen on a remote island off the coast of Brittany, which is a region in France. But one that I really want you guys to check out, and this really brought me all the way back to film school. It's a film called The Lighthouse Keepers by Jean Grémillon. It is the story of two lighthouse keepers, one old, one young, who is actually his son, and who ends up falling ill because he was bitten by a dog and has contracted rabies. And you can watch this one on YouTube. Unfortunately, it's in a pretty poor quality. As you can see visually, there are definitely some similarities, and if you love this film, then I would suggest that maybe you go and watch this old silent French film for reference. I think The Lighthouse is a beautiful, strange, amazingly crafted experience that is both strange and incredibly funny. However, and I can't really quite put my finger on it, there is a certain artificiality to it that never made me sort of forget that I was watching a film. And so any sort of the pleasure that I had while watching The Lighthouse was on a purely sort of intellectual and cinephile level. The decorum is amazing, the sets are perfect, you can tell they're shooting in real weather and certainly not with rain machines. But I never saw anything other than Robert Pattinson with a mustache or Willem Dafoe talking like a pirate. I never saw real characters there. And to a certain extent that's done on purpose. The film is extremely self-conscious and it calls itself out every once in a while. It's far more interested in its visual presentation and its thematic presentation than it is in feeling genuine. And I'm not sure whether that tends to detach the spectator from the experience or if that just makes it that much more interesting on several rewatches. However, as of right now, I tend to be leaning a little more on the former, which makes it a film that's very easy to like and to recommend, but also one that for me isn't that easy to love. So as always, thanks very much for watching the video. Please be sure to hit the like button if you like the review, subscribe if you're new, and until next time, see ya.